Talk to me about that dispute and the ramifications that came from that.
Well, again, now you're talking about a time when I'm still in Canada, in Toronto.
Right.
So I didn't understand. I was young. I didn't understand all the politics that went on in that. The match was made with Rogers and Thez because they wanted Thez to regain the title. And at this time, they weren't very pleased. What a lot of people don't know, Buddy, first of all, let me say this. Buddy Rogers and I were enemies from day one. He didn't like me, I didn't like him, okay?
Why?
I felt when I first met him, I had heard, for one thing, I had heard a lot of stories about him. The different guys that he hurt intentionally and stuff like this. But also that I had heard stories about him being a con man and about manipulator and all this kind of stuff. I didn't know the man, but when I first met him, I don't know if I was influenced by all these stories, but somehow I thought I saw that in this guy. Okay. I just saw it in him, and I guess, to be honest and true to yourself, I guess maybe I showed it. And he saw me as this young guy coming into the business and had done some good things like picking up Ace-Tex Calhoun, before he came in. And all of a sudden, there's a lot of noise about this guy. He says, what a powerful guy, from Abruzzi, Italy. They start calling me the strong man from Abruzzi and all this kind of stuff. But Buddy, when he came into the territory, he always brought his entourage of wrestlers. Buddy Austin, Johnny Barron, the Gabor brothers, Clyde Steves, a bunch of them. And what he always wanted to do was, Billy Darnell, who was a great super talent. A lot of them were great talents.
Right.
But he wanted to manipulate the territories and make these guys the stars. You know what I mean?
Right.
And anybody else who was already in that territory, they would have to be stepping stones for these other guys.
Why were they so invested in Buddy? But Toots and Vincent J, they secede from the NWA as a result of this, just to keep the spotlight on Buddy and refer to him as the world champion still. They were hypnotized.
Toots Mont wasn't as much. Vince, first of all, Rogers, you have to understand, was a great talent.
Right.
He was great in the ring. I mean, there's guys that have followed him. And we could argue where you could say to me, well, this guy I think was every bit as good or better. But the reality is Rogers had something about him that when he went in that ring, he stood out. You know what I mean? He wasn't imitating anybody.
It was genuine arrogance.
He was
maybe.
A genuine guy. Well, he was arrogant. And in that ring, he portrayed it in such a way that it came really across. But there was something about him that for one thing, the guy kept himself in good shape. Buddy always looked fit. He wasn't a steroid freak. He was a guy who worked out, and he had a genuine, good-looking body. He was a great performer in the ring. You can't take it away from him. And he was, like I say, he had that arrogance about him that really could get to people. Problem was, though, with why Buddy Rogers and Toots Mont knew this, and I don't know if Vince knew or didn't know or didn't care. I don't know the story behind that. But Rogers had a reputation for going to a territory. As you know, there were many territories in those days. He would come into a territory, he would bring his group, whatever, and they would do all kinds of shangles and, you know what I mean, all kind of shotgunning, we called it, the territory. The trouble with that is that it worked in the beginning, and it would do great business.
Like hot shotting.
That's
right. Get the gate up right away.
Exactly. But then it would slide and it would die. But what Buddy would do is pack up his gang and move on to a different territory. And then the promoter in that particular territory was stuck with a dead horse.
Yes.
And Toots, I think, understood that. So he was never, as far as the conversations I had with him, he was never a big fan of Rogers. Vince, on the other hand, was. And I think Vince respected the guy's ability in the ring because he was good and the way he looked and everything else. And Buddy, like I said, God rest his soul, but he was a terrific con man and maybe convinced Vince that, all these things he could do and would do and all that.
Speaking specific to this title change or non-title change, as McMahon wanted, True or false? I'm going to give you a few true or falses throughout the course of this because there's so many myths that have come. Okay. Maybe you could shed light. True or false? McMahon goes to Stanley Weston, who ran all the wrestling magazines at the time, and tells him, do not report the title change. It never happened. Did you ever hear that?
No, I never heard that. That I didn't know.
Are people taking Rogers seriously as a world champion because there was a title loss that no one's talking about? Or back then, because of the territory system, no cable TV,
right,
were they really sequestered territories where you didn't hear what happened in Canada the other day?
Yeah, right. Yeah, he was recognized as the champion in the territory of the New York, okay? I could say New York, but that territory.
Right, sure.
But in other places, NWA stood strong. The champion with NWA was the most recognized champion in the country-wise, and even overseas. So Rogers was really recognized as the champion, but only people believed him as the champion, but only in the Northeast. Outside that area was strictly NWA who was the recognized as the champion.
How was Buddy in the ring? Let's just talk about strictly workmanship, technical.
It's great. He was a great performance. The only problem is that even though I was, you might say, still kind of a rookie, not quite a rookie, but I wasn't, I was still coming up. Because of my feeling of him and the stories about him, I was always tried to protect myself because I knew that there were certain holds that he would do. For example, he would use a pile driver. You know what's a pile driver? Well, if you ever heard of Sammy Berg, they had to put a steel plate on his head from the pile driver. If you ever heard of Eric Patterson, he got caught into Buddy Rogers, what they call the giant swing. And he made sure he lined himself up and let him go through the ropes to where he shot out into the audience, those harsh steel chairs, and he broke his leg, broke his arm, and he almost got killed. And there were others like that. I fell into that trap in Steubenville, Ohio, when Buddy Rogers was coming off the ropes, and he caught me with a body slam. But instead of slamming me in the ring, he slammed me, because we were on the rope, he slammed me outside the ring, outside, over the top rope and out. And you have to remember, in my day, we didn't have, like they have now, the paddings all over. It was strictly a concrete floor, and the chairs were very close because of the commission, doctors and all these commissioners. So there wasn't much space. So when I got slammed out there, I crushed chairs and stuff, and I got hurt. I really got hurt. And after that, I was, if I wasn't 100% convinced, I became 100% convinced that when you wrestle this guy, watch out, because of what he's, because even though he would swear and make you believe that he wasn't intentional, but I had never bought into that.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So he and I, that's like I say, things went from bad to worse.
When should we start the calendar on the beginning of the WWF? Is it this day when Rogers is given the first title? Is it when they secede from the NWA? In your mind, when did the WWF really begin?
After he lost the title to Thesz in Toronto.
Okay.
After that, they got all together, Toots and Vince and Willie Gilzenberg and I don't know who else was in the meeting. They decided that they were going to form the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, and they were going to go on their own, and that's when it came about.
This title was one of those tournaments in Brazil, which you might have heard about.
Yes.
Is where he won this title. How did that come about, the Rio de Janeiro tournament? Is this the first use of it, or do you remember having heard about the Rio tournament before then? Because I think Pat Patterson, didn't they use the Rio tournament when he had the IC title? It kind of became a thing.
Yeah, well, I wasn't familiar with that. I remember hearing in Canada about this thing with Rogers become champion. And to be perfectly honest with you, at the time I'm working all over Canada, I didn't know what was going on. I thought maybe they did have something.
They had the tournament?
Yeah, I didn't know. And I wasn't invited. So I didn't know. I found out later, of course, you know. That
when he gives you the finish, you tell him it makes no sense because you're coming back the following month against Kowalski.
right.
So following the match, you call Vince and say, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. Don't put him on my shows anymore. I'm not going to work while he's there. True?
Well, yes, but here's the way it went. When I had done TV in Pittsburgh, in those days all the TVs were live TVs. Mm-hmm. So I flew to Pittsburgh, I just did interviews there on the live TV because I had to plug the arena in Pittsburgh because I was going to be appearing there on next Friday, you know. And then I had to take one of those little putt-putt job planes, just me and the pilot, to fly me to Philadelphia. So, you know, I'm rushing like heck and I get over there, and Buddy sent word from somebody else to talk to me and say to go 1 hour, okay? Mm-hmm. And I said, what? I said, how can it be? I said, I'm with Kowalski next month. And but I knew Rogers was the agent, and I didn't say anything to anybody. I just questioned it. But then what I did was, after the match, I went the hour. We had a terrific match for 1 hour. And then I had that guy wait with that little wee plane because I was going back to Pittsburgh because I forget. I had to go back to Pittsburgh. I don't remember if we had the show there, whatever it was. But that when I got back, it was late, very late. So I waited till morning, early in the morning, and I called McMahon. And I said to him, I'm going to tell you something. Don't ever have Rogers as the agent any place where I appear. I says, because if you do, I said, there's going to be big problems. I said, big problems. I don't like the guy. And I said, and I don't have nothing to do with him. Don't ever have him come near me for any reason. I said, where the heck do you get off me wrestling this guy for 1 hour when I have to come back with Kowalski next month? And he said, well, is that what happened? I said, well, who's calling the shots?
Yeah, really?
I said to Vince.
Yeah.
I says, I'm just letting you know. I said, you like Buddy, if you want him around, it's your business, but don't ever have him anywhere where I'm going to be. And that was the end of it.
I was going to say, he's gone from the company right after this. Do you feel that had something to do with it?
Absolutely, because Buddy was demanding with Vince. He wanted to do this, he wanted to be there, and I was the headliner. So all the arenas, I'm going to be the headliner. And now he knew that he couldn't be in any of those spots. So that created more problems.